Mm-hmm.
Hi, everyone. I am Devah Koure. I pointed the right way the first time. That is Blaire. She is my special guest for this episode. We are going to be doing a live intuitive guidance session on air. This is the first time that I have done one of these with another person next to me. Yeah, I keep I keep doing it right. With another person next to me. And for those who were on the old podcast that I was doing with Josh, um, we people would write into the comments and would ask questions, and Josh and I would do kind of like mini readings for them based on their comments and their questions. But this time, you're going to get to see somebody's reaction live on air. You're going to get to see them give feedback. You're going to get to hear their questions and comments that they have live as we're doing the guidance. And I'm super excited about it. If you are interested in getting a live intuitive guidance session as well, there's a couple ways to do it. You could do it free here on YouTube until this starts getting really popular. Now's the time to get in. Because I'm hoping at some point I'll get so many people wanting the free reading that there'll be a wait list. So get in before that happens. And if you are interested, hey Christine, if you are interested in paying for a reading, you can go out to my website, highestvision.net. And out there I have the way that you could pay for a reading. The pros and cons of it. The pro is if you do this live free YouTube reading, everybody knows everything about you. Sorry, Blaire. And if you want one private, well, then that one, the privacy is what we pay for. And that's pretty much the difference. You'll probably get more time with me private. We'll probably shorten this one a little bit to make it palatable to people, around 45 minutes or so. Nobody wants to sit here for an hour and a half and watch us go through everything. But otherwise, it's pretty much the same. As always, I can't control what comes through. So whatever is said live is said live, but I will do my best to protect the privacy of names. For example, we're just using the first name, we're not using the last name. As you, Blaire, have feedback or questions about what's going on in your life, try to use general terms and not names, of course, unless you want the names out there. Mm-hmm. All right. So we got Christine. I'm sure we got a couple of other people. I'm super excited to get started. So again, this is Blaire. Oh, 3 times in a row. This is Blaire. We're doing an intuitive guidance session. And let's get started. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to having this conversation tonight.
Good.
So,
good.
Yeah.
All right. I am too.
We're on the same page.
We are on the same page. I told Blaire she was my guinea pig. I'm sure she totally appreciated being referred to as that. So.
Not a problem.
All right. So why don't we jump in? What made you want to have the live intuitive guidance session?
I believe so much in what you do, your vision of things, and connecting folks to that space.
Yeah.
I sort of believe in all things, wherever you're met, wherever that is, spiritual, or on your journey. I was interested. I have my own, everyone has their own travails, and having some guidance. The title, you're sort of finding our highest selves, like that just it really spoke to me, resonated. Seems like just the answer that I need. I just don't know what all the questions are yet. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So when you say you don't know what all the questions are you hoping that this guidance will provide some of the questions?
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
And because I feel like answers are sort of emerge, unfold. There's not we don't have a roadmap to all of this. So I think asking the right questions sometimes can get us in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think so. I think so. So what's coming through for me at first is a little bit of nervousness, right? This is new. This is, what are you doing? You're doing this live, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and, nobody really likes being on camera. Some people say they do, but let's be honest, nobody's feeling this, right? So there's that. But I'm also feeling this sense of just kind of like exhaustion. Like, oh, like everything's about to fall apart. Like, it's like right here in my chest, in my heart. Like, whew, like everything just feels like it's about to fall apart. And you can't quite put a finger on what it is either that's going to fall apart, can you?
Right.
It just feels like it's going to.
Right.
It's like a state of anxiety without a focus.
It's true.
Yeah.
Sometimes what I create more than the reality. Right. So, yeah. So it's funny that you said not funny about carrying it all in my chest. So ultimately, maybe it was a pinched nerve, but on Saturday morning, I woke my husband up and was like, "You have to take me to the ER right now because I think I'm having a heart attack." Like it was pain in my chest, numbness down my arm, all those things that make you worry about such a thing. And it wasn't. And I have a good bill of health, thank goodness. But it just made me stop and think about the way that I'm carrying all of this anxiety and worry and what that is doing to me. Um, and then what to do, like how to lay it down, because I use all the conventional, I've had therapy, I manage things. Um, but I just haven't figured out how to lay all that down. So,
It's a burden. It feels like a burden that you have to shoulder. You don't have to, but I'm like it feels like you have to shoulder it.
right.
Like your atlas carrying the world.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of like little mini things. Like there's the like what is it that we call it? We call it the invisible work, right? Of having a
Yeah.
family, And it's the invisible worrying. It's the okay, I got to get the kids to school on time. Okay, I got to pack a lunch. I got to do this. I got to do that. Are they seeing their friends enough? Are they socialized enough? Right? Like all the little like
Yep.
things that come in, that come up. Right? Am I doing a good job? Right? And do you mind closing that door behind you? Is
No,
that all
I've got
right?
it. Yep. That's fine. This is supposed to be my quiet spot. Case in point. So,
So yeah, you don't even have the quiet spot, right? Like that
no.
just came up. You don't even have a
Yeah.
space that's just yours.
No. And we live in an old house with doors falling off and yeah, it was like that was part of getting ready for today was I have to physically create space so that I can do this, and usually this is works pretty well. Like I've used this space for working from home in the past, but I thought everybody was out the door already. So
Right.
that was not to be the case.
No.
So.
Well, I think it's perfect, actually. Because it showed up to show us that you don't have a space for yourself. You know, it showed up exactly when it was meant to show us that that is also missing in your life.
Mm-hmm.
That in order to get the grounding and the solitude and the silence that you need in order to just think the thoughts. I'm not even talking about clearing the mind, I'm talking about just thinking the thoughts. You don't even have the space for that. That's a big
Yeah.
part of the reason why you feel the anxiety is because you can't sit down and fully think through something. Because
Right.
fully thinking through something, and I don't mean getting caught in analysis paralysis, right? I don't mean getting caught in the worry. I mean fully thinking through something means, okay, this is something I'm worried about. Let me examine all the things that can happen. Let me examine the most likely thing to happen, right? And let me examine what I will do in various likely scenarios. And then you give yourself a plan of action, and then the anxiety goes away,
Mm-hmm.
right? So to
Yeah.
fully sit down and have time to think the thought is something.
And work through it
Yes.
without being in a constant state of interruption or waiting for the next shoe to drop.
Waiting for the interruption, right? And waiting for the shoe to drop. Yeah. Because it's always something, right? It's
Right.
always, it feels like, okay, I don't have time to think about this because something else is going to happen. And then it gets shoved down, you know?
Mm-hmm.
All the things that you don't have time to think about, you know where they end up? Your chest.
Yeah.
Because that's where you carry your stress.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it in your muscles. You're especially
Yeah.
right up here,
Yeah.
but also your chest. Yeah. And there's only so much massages or anything else that can be done to relieve that because you're not getting the time to actually get it out and let it process and move through you.
Right.
Yeah. I can even hear it right now. They're
Yeah.
yelling.
Yep. Yep. I live with a house full of most of whom have anxiety condition, and it manifests differently. Um, I've said everything I said to get everything prepared for me to be not available for this time, and things are just sort of, they're not even that, it's not even that big a deal, but a big a deal is being made out of it. So, but they're just going to have to deal. So,
So is it you or them who's making a big deal out of it?
they're making a big deal out of it. Like, there's a pretty simple solution that didn't involve all the yelling that's happening. So,
Okay.
yeah. So,
And can you control what other people do?
no,
No.
no,
What can you control?
just my own reaction to it.
Your own
So,
reaction to it. Yeah, that's it. So, how do we work through giving you space so that way you can make the unconscious conscious and actually think the thoughts and let all this stuff come up from your chest and out and be processed and fulfilled, right? And allow you to be aware of your reactions and begin to control how you respond to it.
right. I don't have that answer.
Yeah.
I found that it really just happens outside of the house, but that's not easy to carve out that time. Already out working full time, and then I walk to work, which is nice. So I get that 10 minutes, and I get to focus my thoughts on a favorite tree, and I use that sort of to ground myself a little bit so that I'm not overwhelmed with worry as I use that time. But that's not enough, you
It's
know.
not
So I
enough.
have to. It's just not. It's all these things are just not enough. It's wanting to. I can't change anybody else, but the dynamic and then how I feel about it and what I carry with it needs to change because home is supposed to be peaceful and a respite. Um, yeah, and it's not always.
It's not.
So
Yeah. Are there. Hmm. I'm wondering actually if, like, what's coming through, and this might be a difficult thing to have live on air, but we said whatever's going to come through is whatever's going to come through, right? Are there relationships that need tweaking in order to make that space?
that's a big one. That's as yet to be determined. So because people have work to do, and I'm trying to allow for space for them to do that work, and then see what it looks like on the other side.
Right, right. Um, and there's some sadness there.
Yeah,
There's a lot of sadness there. Yeah. And it's hard waiting, right? It's hard waiting and giving the person space and seeing what will come and knowing that it's entirely up to them what's in their control, right?
right,
What is in your control is how much space you give them. What's in their control is whether or not they actually do the work
right.
and make the changes. Is there somebody in your life that's a workaholic?
Mm, no, I
Okay.
mean, work is sort of my escape. Um,
Not
I didn't mean
you.
to use them,
Well,
but
maybe it is you.
yeah,
No?
yeah, but no, I mean, I fortunately I have kind of a set schedule. I get to leave work at home, work at work, which is nice.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
got, and maybe it's not workaholic, maybe it's about worrying. But I got last night a tarot card for you that pointed to that. And it said, many of us spend our lives trying to fill the void that was created when the link to the divine was broken. So, in essence, it's somebody trying to fill a void in their life,
mhm,
right? It may not be
yeah,
workaholic, but it's somebody trying to fill a void in their life. Somebody who doesn't take the time to sit and think and process and just keeps going and going and going.
yeah, yeah. That's my husband. Absolutely. He
Yeah.
says it of himself, so that he just can't sit still and feels like he has to do all of that. Um, and just has a really hard time relaxing.
Does that affect you?
Yes, it makes me feel like I shouldn't be relaxing either. So, and that's my own thing. I know that, but it just creates that kind of, well, I mean, it does. Energy does have an impact on other people when you're around it, good and bad. So when he's constantly on the move and then not a good, frazzled, that gets me worked up. Now he can do that and we can have totally normal, reasonable conversations. He's like, I'm just doing this. I just need to get this done. You do whatever you want, so it's, those are small steps, but, yeah. And that goes back to my childhood because I lived in one of these houses where, um, my dad was controlling and a neat freak and, you just kind of never knew what you were walking into with the energy. So when it gets like that, then I get pulled back into that headspace. And yeah, then I want to retreat.
Well, we actually learn as children to be empathetic as a survival mechanism, right? So that way we can read the energy in the room. That way we can read, is this the right time to walk into the room, the wrong time to
Yeah.
walk into the room? What do I need to do to walk into this room? And then we don't really ever put down that skill. We keep using it throughout our lives, right? People who, and I'm not saying that all empathetic people have had childhoods like that. I'm not saying that, but
Right.
that's the case for a few, at least a percentage, right?
Right.
And that empathy we kind of keep, and we still continue to use it as a skill, and we, check in like, hey, is my boss in a good mood right now? Is this the right
Right.
time to ask for this? Is this the right time to do that? Um, oh, one of my kids is struggling right now, so it's probably not the right time to, nag them to bring their dishes into the kitchen,
Right.
or whatever the case is, right? And it's not necessarily a bad skill to have, but what can happen is that we can lose ourselves in the process. We can
Right.
lose ourselves in the process, that we're so busy reading other people and reading the energy in the room, that we forget that we matter too.
Right. Yeah. And I think when we came into this, that was one of the questions that, or things that had been flittering around in my mind, is that so much of what I planned, what I saw for myself, it didn't get past a certain point. I went to college and I wanted to do that, and then I had other things I thought I would do, and then I didn't do them, and I didn't know at the time that I wanted to have a family or be married, and so
Mm-hmm.
now it feels like I'm not great at, what do things look like in 5 years? You
Right.
know, so focusing on knowing where to focus, or what color is my parachute? I don't
Right.
know. So, um, and figuring out being my higher self. I don't know what that means yet. So, yeah, I'm just sort of talking. I don't know. Um, but I feel like that plays into it. So much of what I focus on is like the right now, or what needs to be done in the next week. And that
Right.
maybe a part of that is the nature of parenting, and parenting neurodivergent kids
Mm-hmm.
need extra support. Um, but it just, the answer doesn't feel like you mentioned earlier, getting a massage and making sure that I, take a walk every night. Probably helpful, but it
Definitely, the
just doesn't
walk
feel
every
like
night is probably even more helpful than the massage, right? Because it
Yeah.
gives you time to contemplate, and you can kind of, as long as you're alone, right? You're
Yeah.
alone, you're with your thoughts. That is helpful. For longer than 10 minutes, though. Um, but yeah, no. So there's this question that's coming in. And we talked in the beginning about, do we need, is it guidance for the questions, or is it guidance for the answers? And the question that's coming in is, what do you want?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And that's not an easy question to answer.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is what I'm struggling with,
Yeah.
just in general.
Yeah. Yeah. The question that's coming in is, what do you want? And it's one thing to have, people in our lives who we give space to, for them to grow, for them to do what they need to do. Um, but you also need to give space to yourself. You need to give that same space to yourself, because you also need to grow. You need to
Mm.
figure out what you want. It may not ultimately even matter to you. It probably does. But for some relationships, it wouldn't even ultimately matter to you if the person changed, if the person grew, right? For something like a
Right.
significant other, yeah, definitely,
Right.
for most people. Um, but for some relationships, who we are is entirely independent of that. And,
Right.
and really, for all of our relationships, who we are should be entirely independent of that. We should know who we are in absence of being a mom and a wife and a worker, and whatever our job is,
Right.
whatever these roles in our lives are, right? We should have some sense of our own internal feeling about who we are.
Right.
Right.
And that's what I'm struggling with. And yeah,
Yeah.
at the core.
The core, that like core like feeling of who this person is.
Right.
And you had these um, ideas, these expectations of how your life was going to turn out, and not knowing that you were going to be a parent, and then being a parent of neurodivergent kids. I am too one of those. It definitely requires a lot of support, and it takes up a lot of your energy, your ability to make time and space for yourself, right?
Right.
So if we sit there and we look at the highest vision of who you are, and we look at, what it would mean to choose who you are, let's sit with that for a few minutes. What are the things that you love about yourself?
I think I'm thoughtful and considerate. Um, I this is tough. Um,
Mm-hmm.
um, I have been told that I tend to make people feel comfortable. I kind of like at work, I have a very peaceful sense about me. And then my joke is always, we should see me at home. Um, but, um, but we're home is getting better. It's just, we have these moments where it all just goes, wow. Um, yeah, I mean, I think those are my best qualities and it's funny because as I say them, it's really about other people.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then as I was thinking about this earlier, I was thinking, well, how do I want to be in community with other people? And, but that's still not about me. So I don't even know that I could answer that right now. I mean, to really think about qualities of myself that are not related to or in related to other people or in the context of those relationships.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah. Right.
What were your plans after you finished college? What
I
was your
thought
life gonna look like?
I was going to at some point I was going to go to law school and be kind of social justice, focus on that or public defender, something within that world. And then I didn't end up going to law school.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the other things I wanted to do was sexual and reproductive health education, which I do, which is what I wanted to do when I was 23, and I'm still involved in that work, which is important. But it's not how I define myself anymore. So it's sort of then looking for if we let that fall away, then who am I? So
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a thing that happens. Um, may I ask your age? I'm 45. It's okay if you don't want to share it.
44 as of
Yeah.
last. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's a thing that happens in the early to mid 40s. In astrology, we call it the Uranus opposition. I don't know if you ever saw me on an old podcast talking about it. It's the midlife crisis point.
Mm,
And it doesn't have to be a midlife crisis. It can just be that we, intentionally choose what our life looks
right.
like, right?
Right.
But what I'm finding for most people, myself included, is that right around these time periods, all of our identities and roles start kind of shifting and falling away. And what's
Mm-hmm.
left when you strip all that away? What's
Right.
left when you're not defining yourself in context of other people?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's tough. It's really tough. Um, it's one of the reasons why we have relationships is so that way we can know ourselves in context of other people,
Right.
right? It's one of the reasons why we have them in the first place, why we seek out other people, so we have boundaries by which I am not that, I am this, right?
Right.
Because otherwise it can be very ungrounding, right? If you're Ted Kaczynski living in a, what was it, Unabomber, living in a cabin in the woods and there's nobody around you and you never see anybody around you, you're
Right.
probably not gonna bomb people through the mail, but we become very ungrounded and unsure of who we are because we have nobody to bounce anything off of, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and so when we sit there and we think about that, who am I, and choosing the highest vision of myself, and choosing what I want to do, I think you need to sit with the question of, well, what do you want to do? Do you want
Hmm.
to serve others or serve yourself? Let's start with that. And there is no wrong answer. Everybody's going to be like, "Oh, of course I want to serve others."
Right.
We're all one, right? We're all one big collective consciousness. So if you serve yourself, if you truly take time to serve yourself, then you are serving everyone else. You're making
Right.
the world a better place, right? And equally, if you are serving others, then you are serving yourself, right?
Right.
So, but if we start there, what value system do you have? Where do you want to serve others or serve yourself?
I feel like I've been serving others for so long that serving myself sounds like a really good idea for
Okay.
me. Like it's just, yeah. And I can see where I heard this quote years ago that said, "Remember when you're trying to save the world, that you're part of it." That was, and I go back to that. It was actually Dar Williams at our concert, like our senior year concert. And yeah, it has always resonated with me. But I have not, I don't do that so well. And then by not doing that, then I'm not serving the people around me that I love and care about as well as I could be, because I'm not doing what I need to do for myself because I haven't figured out what that is yet.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you could choose, let's say you had the rest of the night free. We finish this podcast and you have the rest of the night free. What would you go and do?
I'd go for a walk, come home, sit down, read a book, talk with my people.
No,
In the
nobody's
house.
home. Nobody's home.
Oh, if nobody's home. That's what I'm doing.
Go
So
for a
going for a
walk,
walk,
come home, read a
coming
book.
home, read a book. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. How often do you get nobody home?
Oh, never.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right. Right.
never.
Right. And if you could choose to do anything with your career, finances be damned, money's no object, what would you do? What would you do for love?
Wow. I, I'd be a book editor, but I don't have the skill set.
Okay,
So.
no.
Yeah.
All right, you'd be a book editor. All right. Ooh, okay, so we have a little theme going on. You like to read books
Yeah.
in your spare time, and you would be a
Yeah.
book editor. I may have a book that needs some editing soon. Just throwing that out there. All right. So you would be a book editor. So now we figured out a couple of things about you that are not dependent upon other people, right?
Yeah.
One of the things about you that is not dependent about other people is that you really love reading and you love, book editing is curation. It's making the book more accessible. It's adding what is needed to the book to make people fall in love with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's removing from the book what is distracting from the core message, the core point of the book, right? So is communication something that we could say is a core tenet for you, that you love to find ways to make people understand something?
Mm-hmm. And I just had this, like, the hair on my arm just stood up because when I was in college, I have a friend who I'm still friendly with, and um, we were talking about this. What do you want to do with your life? And after we spoke a bit, she said, "So, you want to make people think?" And it was like, yeah. And that's, I can't go get a job doing that, but it feels like it sort of just came back into play a little bit right now.
There are
What we just
jobs. There are jobs that do make people think, aren't there?
Probably, yeah,
Yeah. What would those look like?
yeah. Hmm.
What's your job right now? Did you say you were a teacher? Or
No, I am actually. I'm trying to say it without saying too
yeah.
much. I work in women's reproductive health care, and I'm in the role of a or assistant manager
Okay.
of,
Okay.
like, office people, schedules, making sure patients are getting seen, and then also doing that direct patient care in kind of like a not an RN role, but like a support staff role.
Support staff
So,
role. Okay,
yeah.
got it. So you work for clinicians as support staff. Is that a
Yeah.
fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. And so that is, while it's an incredibly important role and incredibly valuable, it is not a role in which you are necessarily making people think.
Right.
It's a role in which you are enabling others to think, but making people think implies that you'd like to have them open themselves to new perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
have them take on new information and perhaps change their path because of that new information,
Right.
right?
Open their mind more. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So let me see what's going to come through. I'm going to sit with this, see if tarot cards want to come through or not. This might be boring for the people on the phone for 30 seconds while I tune in, but we'll see. Oh, your spirit guides, they're just so lovely. They're so lovely. Like, just peaceful. Like, just really peaceful. Spirit guides are not always the most ascended souls, as you can imagine. You can have ancestors as spirit guides, right? They can be grandparents that have passed away, or great grandparents, or whatever, and they're still working through their stuff. They have a higher perspective and they want good things for you, but they're still also working through their stuff, right? And they're doing the best that they can for us. Your spirit guides are just peaceful and gentle and loving and warm. It feels like wings, you know? Maybe there's some angels in there. Yeah, that feels right. Not that everybody doesn't have wings. We all have wings. But let me see what's coming through. They said hi. They say, we've been waiting a while for you to get to this point, for you to ask for help, for you to ask for guidance. They've been trying to point you in the right direction, they said. You're not always seeing their messages.
I'm not seeing it.
Like things in books that you're reading, little snippets in a TV show, like stuff is coming up that it's like, we really want her to see this, you know? Your gift, let me ask them what your gift is. So your gift is in helping people understand. Your gift is helping people see the truth, to see the reality of what's around them, to be able to accept their reality. Reality is the hardest thing that we can accept, right? It's the hardest thing to accept. It seems like it would be very reasonable, like this cup right? This cup
Right.
is real. And yet the things that we push away are, you know, things that somebody in our life is struggling with something and we don't notice it until they're really, really struggling, right? We're not necessarily willing to not even admit it. We just don't even see it, right? We don't even see that we're struggling with something. We feel like we're happy, happy, happy until we're really freaking not happy, right? And it kind of hits us like a freight train. So your gift is to help people see their reality, is to help people wake up to what's in front of them through messages and medium that is accessible. So it's not necessarily, you could be a psychologist, but that's not what I'm getting. You're not necessarily that. It's more like there's a book that you've either written or edited or a blog post or whatever, and people are reading it, and the message in there is so accessible and so global and so common for humans that they can see themselves in it, right? They can see themselves in that message. It's not directed at them. It's not, you know, you're not going to their spirit guides and getting a specific message for them. It's this more global, more general thing. And what happens is they see themselves in this message, and then they have this sudden kind of epiphany and awareness, right? Because they don't have to keep choosing the same things over and over again. You don't have to keep choosing the same thing over and over again. Right? We have these circles, these patterns that we rinse and we repeat.
Yep.
Over and over and over again. And you know how we break them? By stopping. We change something. We go in a different direction. We say, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to do this now. And it may not be the right choice, but at least we were trying something new, right? Because the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over and over again and hoping for a different result.
Right.
Yeah. And so you have this gift that you can help people see. And it's not just with the written word, it's also with art. You have this ability to curate art. I almost, not that this is what you would choose for yourself, but I'm almost seeing like an art gallery. I don't know why, but like, okay, you're nodding, so maybe there's something to that. But I'm almost seeing this like art gallery, and it has, God, beautiful messages in it. It's not just the art, but some of the art is like a letter written to somebody. I don't know how to describe it. Some of the art is like beautiful ancient secrets that somebody who's since passed away shared with somebody else, but there's something very global in the secret that they shared, and people can get something out of it. And then they can recognize that in themselves and go, oh, I'm ready for something new, or oh, now I have more information about who I am, about who I'm choosing to be. You have this gift that you can give to the world. Does any of this sound familiar or reasonable or resonating? Or
It could, yes. I mean, art was my love before politics, and then the law school thing, and I lost as far as getting my hands on it. But I've been thinking about it a lot. Like, just so now, instead of doing it all the time, it's like once every 5 years. You know, something will inspiration. So instead of treating it like a hobby or a craft or something, a discipline where I'm focusing on it, it's just like, oh, well, okay, you know, if something really pushes through, and the rest, I can see that. I can't see myself having done that already in terms of that I know of, putting anything out there that has had that kind of impact on anyone.
you have more than you know. That's what just came through. You have more than you know.
But could see that. I mean, I could see the way that, you know, that's how I relate to things, and I'll hold on to stuff, and, you know, clean up my don't organize, only move boxes, but then I find these great things that I had tucked away, and they become somewhat um, inspiring in the moment for me. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there's something about sharing both the inspiration and the outcome of that inspiration
Mm-hmm.
that is in your gift, right? A lot of artists, they just make the art and then they let just the art speak for itself. There's something about your process that if you also share your inspiration for it, people will get more from it.
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, choosing who you are, your highest vision of who yourself. Can you see art? Can you see
Yeah.
communication? Can you see giving
Yeah.
these
I
things?
am an
Yeah.
artist. I always have been. I just put it away for a really long time. Um,
You denied a part of yourself to help other people be their best selves.
yeah.
You didn't feel like there was room enough for you to.
Yeah. Physically, even. I mean, I'm just, as we began the session talking about having to find space. Um, yeah. But then little bits of it come through, whether it's, my kids making fun of me because of how many pictures I take of clouds, or,
Yeah.
things like that, that show up in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think there's an opportunity for you to allow the other people in your life to meet you where you are instead of you meeting them where they are. Because that empathy thing is all about meeting somebody where they are, right? And there's an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for you to have a family meeting and sit down and be like, guys, I need to change some stuff that's going on here. I need some space for me. And I need you guys to meet me where I am sometimes. So, what can we do to make space? You know,
Right.
it could just be a corner where you could do art and write, you know? It could be a spot outside in the backyard, but it needs to become sacred and it needs to become yours.
Yeah.
And there needs to be honored time around that space. It's not just the physical space, it's also the time spent in the space. That when you were
Yeah.
spending time in that space, even that time spent is sacred and honored, and you were only interrupted if somebody is bleeding profusely.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's an actual broken bone, if an arm is at a 90-degree angle and it's not where the elbow is, okay. You
Right.
know?
Right. Then come up and get me.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like today was kind of a precursor to that possibility, because I was just doing other, kind of cleaning and organizing and getting time to do that, because I felt like I needed to do that. And then everybody else was doing what they needed to do, and it was fine. So
Right.
that was like as a way to show me, like, and it was fine. It is fine.
Yeah.
It's me putting myself in balance, I think, so that just for me. I mean, I could say, I was about to add, like, because I know it will, of course, that will benefit everyone else around me in
Yeah.
my space and whom I love, because that's what happens. I think when we tweak we get our needs met. I mean, and that's what I would tell someone else. So, but that wouldn't be the motivation for it, if that makes sense, right? Yeah.
Right. Right. The best thing that we can do for somebody else is to work on ourselves. Right?
Right.
Yeah. That's the gift that you're giving them, is by making a space for you. And you have to set boundaries around that space. You're going to have kind of militant boundaries around it, because they will push. They're going to be like, well, what happens if I'm just bleeding mildly and not profusely? Right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is in a spot where I can't put a band-aid on it myself, kind of thing. No, you got to like
Right.
hold the boundaries, right? And make
Hmm.
sure that the other adults in your life can take on some of those things when you're
Yeah.
holding those boundaries, right? And if you find, and I hope that you don't find this, but if you find that some of the people in your life are not supportive of you making this space for yourself, then at that point you have to choose what your next step is,
Right.
right? Because you matter too,
Yeah.
just as much, just as much. You are inherently worthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And denying your own worthiness denies how incredible you are, denies your inherent value, and it shows your children. I mean, this is something that we as moms do. We show our children that it's okay to deny your own worthiness, to
Right.
deny your own value.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, how was that?
It's really not at all what I expected. I mean, yeah, it was wonderful, but not in terms of what I thought I would be doing. I thought I would be kind of like falling apart or something, in a way that, yeah, I feel like it's more a reminder of a coming back to. So
Yeah.
perhaps I'm not as misguided as I ex- think that I was at first thought.
Or maybe it's that you didn't need to fall apart with it. Maybe it's that the questions actually give you a sense of grounding, a place to start.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, tell people your experience so they'll sign up. I need more people to sign up.
I will tell people my experience and just yeah. And right now, this is just a great conversation, and to have the connection that you have and can share that is just really um, invaluable.
I'm
So
really glad.
I really
I'm really
appreciate
glad
that
I was able to
this
help.
time that
So,
you took for me.
yeah. No, I'm super super happy that it was helpful in some way. So.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Thank you, everyone. We got a couple questions in the comments, or maybe just one question. I'm not sure here. So Henry Heidemann, who I actually know is Scott, he says, not a spiritual question, but why is that plant moving on your left? This is an asparagus fern, and it likes to attack me. And I'm not really sure what that is. And I have a bunch of plants above me, and I would show them, but they all need watering and they're sad. So I need to go do that after this. And all right, next question. Oh, a comment. Margot says, Blaire, thank you for being open and vulnerable. I appreciate you for that. And I agree. It was really wonderful. And then Margot also says, I want to serve myself and include my husband in that. That would be a very nice break. Good question. What would you do? All right. Yeah. So I think that's the message to everybody, right? Is like, what would you do if there were no boundaries? If there were no boundaries. And then try to find, not even try, make space in your life so you can begin doing some of that.
Hmm.
You know? Nobody's going to make the space for us. Nobody's going to make the space for us. We have to do it ourselves. Yeah.
Right. Because when someone else does try to do it for you, it just sometimes can feel like, nagging, or, it's,
Right.
yeah, right. Like, if, oh, you should, yeah, go do that walk. No, I want to decide to do that walk myself.
I
Yeah.
wanted to decide it on my own. Yeah, now you're
Right.
like obligated to take a walk because they made
Right.
space for you to take a walk.
Right.
Like, yeah,
As opposed to coming to that on our own,
yeah,
and um and putting such a value on it that then others around you can see why it's important.
yeah, yeah,
So
totally.
not needing permission for it.
Not needing that's a big thing, is not needing permission for it. And I think for a long time, I also was asking permission for everything. Like, hey, can I go take some time by myself to go, even just go paint, you know, or go, dude, going to the freaking grocery store when you have neurodivergent kids and they're young, going to the grocery store is a break.
Yeah.
Like, how the insanity of that, the
Right.
ways in which I was not serving myself, you
Right.
know?
On anybody else's list, that's a chore. You know, the single person going to the grocery. I mean, they might like it, but it's still, you know, a chore, not a break.
Not a break. Yeah. Yeah. And so stopping asking for permission. Don't do more than what's reasonable, right? Like start with what's reasonable. Like, hey, I'm gonna go take a walk now. Everybody's good, right?
Yeah.
Great. Wonderful, bye. You know? Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And just doing it. Just going and making the space.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Much love to you. Thank you so much for being my
Thank you
guinea
very much.
pig.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, I'm very happy that we could do this. All right. Thank you, Blaire. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Appreciate everyone's support. Talk